If you enjoy manhwa recaps like this, hit subscribe, because the next story might be even crazier. The mouse clicked, the keyboard tapped, and the system cheerfully announced it was logging into the game. Moments later, success. It welcomed Outboxer009 to the digital realm. Yuda, playing as Outboxer009. A notification rang, prompting him to wonder what had popped up immediately upon logging in. The system informed him it was a new message, welcoming him to Legends of Heroes 2. It also mentioned a double experience event was currently active, and that Hans Leisgang's wings were now available in the item shop. And, of course, the standard warning about excessive gaming being bad for health. Southern Barbaric Cat wasted no time in declaring that the Game Freak has logged in. Yuda, clearly not amused, internally questioned the Game Freak label. He wondered if that was really appropriate, finding it a bit ridiculous. The keyboard clicked repeatedly as the game screen fully loaded. Yuda sighed, or at least mentally, and decided, all right then. He pondered what their objective for the day would be. The screen, ever diligent, repeated its warning about excessive gaming. In the chat, Outboxer009 coolly responded to Southern Barbaric Cat, pointing out that they were both, after all, stuck in the game together. Yellow Tempest then chimed in, asking if Outboxer009 was ready to drop to rank 2 this month. Yuda sat at his computer, a slight smirk playing on his lips. He said, okay, almost to himself, and wondered aloud if he should go check out the rankings for this month. A small gesture of confidence. It turns out Outboxer009, whose player name is Yuda Bale, had held the rank 1 spot for an impressive 22 consecutive months in Legends of Heroes 2. Yeah, he was kinda a big deal. Legends of Heroes 2. It's a game so well made that, even after more than 10 years since its launch, people are still playing it. The system lets you pick a character within the game world, and then nurture them to your heart's content. The monthly ranking system would update, and a dedicated group of old players would basically lose their minds trying to snag the top spots. Because apparently, things were not complicated enough already. A new scene unfolded as a footstep forward. The system notified that the player had just entered the Hall of Fame. This player was Kong Jinho, and he walked forward, beginning to call out a greeting. His gaze, however, fell upon Cordelia Chase and a maid standing across the hall. Cordelia, in turn, asked if that person was Boxer Hyung Nim, the legendary rank 1 player. She wondered if this month would be just like all the others. The system helpfully informed us that Southern Barbaric Cat was actually player Cordelia Chase, currently sitting at rank 95. So, we kick things off with Cordelia Chase, who is apparently feeling quite ambitious. She crosses her arms and declares she'll be taking the top spot this month. For context, she's known as Yellow Tempest, ranked number 2 for 21 months straight. That's some serious dedication, or maybe just stubbornness. Then Kong Jinho steps in, laughing at her ambition. He tells Yellow Tempest her win is clipping through the wall, which, is a very game-specific way of saying it's not happening. He even thinks his own avatar, which he made himself, is quite cute. Kong Jinho adjusts his glasses, strikes a pose, the greatest genius pose in all of history, apparently, and tells her not to look at places she can't climb. He emphasizes that she's forever number 2. Cordelia, predictably, yells that he's annoying and insists this month will be different, telling him not to repeat himself. He just laughs. Southern Barbaric Cat chimes in, telling Cordelia to dream on, and Cordelia screams in frustration. Just then, a system message pops up, announcing that this month's rankings are live. And here's where things get interesting. Rank 1, for 23 months consecutively, is Outboxer009, with a cool 315,234,999 points. Rank 2, Yellow Tempest, for 22 months consecutively, has a measly 5,234,125 points. Rank 3 has even less. Yeah, nobody saw that coming. Cordelia, still in denial, repeats her earlier claim about taking rank 1. Both she and Southern Barbaric Cat fall silent, processing the sheer difference. Outboxer009 naturally snickers. Cordelia screams that it's not right, and something is wrong. The chat log lights up with a heated exchange. Yellow Tempest yells again that this isn't right, asking what went wrong. Outboxer009 just laughs, stating it's simply the difference between them. Another player, AAA, notes that the mental breakdown has arrived. Cowabunga suggests Outboxer009 teases her because of her reactions. Outboxer009 then tells the rank 2 player to try harder next month. Yellow Tempest argues it's only a difference of 800 points, which, after seeing the actual numbers, feels like a bit of a stretch. Outboxer009 agrees, wondering why she couldn't even get those points. The system, ever vigilant, restricts her swear words. AAA laughs. Yellow Tempest argues her remark shouldn't be considered a swear word. Outboxer009 decides it's time for sleep, telling her to dream of him. Southern Barbaric Cat tries to calm Yellow Tempest down. The system then notifies everyone that Outboxer009 and Yellow Tempest have both logged out. Southern Barbaric Cat wonders what just happened, and if they really logged out simultaneously. She thinks it's incredible that the top two players left at the exact same time, chalking it up to the descendant of Stormzerg. She then starts thinking about what an intense BL novel this all is, suggesting they should aim for their 100th anniversary instead of lasting forever. Because apparently, things were not complicated enough already. Suddenly, someone screams. Then we cut to Yuda, gasping for air, unable to breathe properly. His surroundings blur. He gasps again, utterly confused about where he is. Yuda, clearly not having the best morning, struggles to get out of his chair. He decides that just sitting there like a lump isn't going to cut it, especially now that he can actually move a little. His mission, should he choose to accept it, is to figure out exactly where he is. He starts walking across a rug, then keeps going, feeling increasingly hot and dizzy. Just a regular Tuesday. He eventually stops in front of a mirror, wondering if he's caught a cold. But then he catches his own reflection and pauses, staring at the image looking back at him. He thinks this is Yuda, but younger. Specifically, his character from Legend of Heroes 2. He realizes he's looking at himself. Suddenly, a sharp sound rings in his head, making him wince. He leans against the table as information starts flooding into his mind. The name, Pleiades. This is the place where all the adventures of heroes take place in Legend of Heroes 2, a fantasy world complete with warring countries, descending demons, and angels. Yeah, nobody saw that coming. He can't quite believe he's actually in the game now. He realizes he's Yuda Bale from when he was young and, let's be honest, pretty weak. He confirms this face is definitely that of Yuda Bale, the second son of a rather famous sword family. He even remembers playing as this character under the rather creative nickname, Outboxer009. Just as he's processing all of this, a knock sounds at the door. A voice from outside calls him, "Young Master," and asks if they may enter. Yuda understandably thinks, "Young Master," in complete shock. The door handle clicks, and Maya, his exclusive maid, enters the room. Maya asks if the young master is inside, and Yuda flinches as the door opens. He thinks his heart is definitely not prepared for whatever comes next. There's a moment of awkward silence between them, because apparently, she just barged in. Maya bows, apologizing for intruding and explaining she thought he wasn't in the room since he didn't reply. Yuda immediately recognizes her as the indifferent maid of the Bale family from his memories, trying to sort through his Game Freak past. He clears his throat, telling her it's all right, and then asks what the matter is, simultaneously telling himself to calm down and figure out what in the actual fantasy world is going on. Maya says she's just there to inform him. Yuda's hand flinches slightly as Maya mentions the lady engaged to him. His maid then calmly tells him that his fiancée is here to visit. Because apparently, things were not complicated enough already. The scene opens in the Bale family reception room. Cordelia sighs, clearly a little tired of waiting, and wonders aloud why her fiancé is taking so long. She asks Dahlia if they can just come back another time, mentioning that her body feels stiff. Dahlia, perhaps used to Cordelia's impatience, quickly tells her no, flinching slightly as she does so. Meanwhile, Yuda is having a bit of an internal moment. He thinks about how his fiancée is Cordelia Chase, from a very famous magic family. Then, a realization hits him. Yellow Tempest, the well-known player, was actually Cordelia. He feels a sudden wave of nervousness, almost disbelief, that Cordelia is really his fiancée. His gamer mind, however, quickly takes over. He decides he needs to meet her first and figure out what is happening, rather than getting ahead of himself with excitement. Yuda then enters the room. Cordelia looks up, and Yuda, bowing politely, tells Lady Cordelia it is nice to meet her. He almost introduces himself as Outboxer, a slip of the tongue that he quickly corrects, identifying himself as the second son of the Bale family. Cordelia stares at him, and he looks back. He states his full name, Yuda Bale. At this point, system tags, Outboxer009, over Yuda and Yellow Tempest, over Cordelia, visibly appear. Cordelia is utterly shocked, and they simply stare at each other in silence. After a moment, Cordelia manages to utter. Maya looks at Yuda as Cordelia asks, "Why?" Then, simultaneously, both Yuda and Cordelia scream, demanding to know why the other is here. Yeah, nobody saw that coming. Cordelia Chase reacts with visible shock. They soon find themselves sitting across from each other at a table, with Yuda trying to calm himself down. He thinks to himself that she is here because she is his fiancée. He wonders about the sudden thud sound that echoed a few times, and why the name Yellow Tempest also appeared. Maya asks the young master if he's alright. Yuda, snapping back to reality, clears his throat and apologizes for his behavior, which Yellow accepts. He then asks her to take a seat, which she does. An awkward silence fills the room. Yuda thinks he should test her first. Just as Yellow begins to speak, Yuda is startled and asks for a pardon. Outboxer 009 leans closer to Cordelia and repeats, "Hi, Yellow." He watches her, noting a very obvious reaction. Outboxer 009 realizes he has a ton of questions, but also sees that there are others present, specifically the maid and Cordelia. He thinks he needs to find a place where they can talk alone. It seems a cooperation battle is about to begin. Cordelia and Outboxer 009 sit across from each other, with the stated entrance coordinates being 9 o'clock, 9th space. And just like that, everything changes. Cordelia, demonstrating her sharp mind, quickly deciphers a hidden code. This code reveals a meeting scheduled for midnight, at very specific coordinates within her garden. Talk about a precise invitation. Yuda watches her intently, probably wondering if she has caught on to his rather specific, gamer-centric communication method. Cordelia subtly moves her hand, a quiet confirmation that she has indeed received the message. She then stands up abruptly, informing Dahlia it is time for them to leave. Dahlia simply follows Cordelia out, leaving Yuda still seated in the background. As Cordelia walks away, Yuda clears his throat and speaks, promising to wait for their next meeting. Asks the obvious question, what just happened? Yuda, our guy, just slumps back in his chair, a chuckle escaping him, and assures her it's all fine. Everything is totally fine. He sighs, internally admitting this whole situation is driving him nuts. He's especially hung up on someone saying, Roger, noting it's exactly how this character. He then muses that it's called the North for a reason, observing how cold it is despite it being summer. You know, just in case you forgot where we were. Yuda wonders if Yellow Tempest is already around, and then, wouldn't you know it, he spots him. After a quick look around the garden, there he is, in the distance. With a purposeful footfall, Yuda calls out to Yellow Tempest, focusing on the cloaked figure standing there. Meanwhile, under a tree, we find Cordelia Chase. She's just looking ahead, probably contemplating the meaning of life, or maybe just what's for dinner. After a moment, she calls out to someone named Outboxer 009. He, being the subtle type, just walks away as Cordelia watches. But then Outboxer 009 asking if he can try something he's been thinking about. The two characters exchange a look. Outboxer 009 lets out a soft curse, saying he thinks he knows what it is and is looking forward to it. A hand moves, and he asks Cordelia if she feels the same. She confirms she does. A silence descends before Outboxer 009, ever the pragmatist, tells her to stop messing around so they can get to serious matters. He then asks when she actually woke up there, because apparently things were not complicated enough already. Back with Yuda, he's mentally wishing for an overpowered character like Leon or Maximilian to be on his side. He recalls that just 2 days ago, he was so sick he was speaking pure gibberish. Cordelia asks if he really was saying gibberish. Yuda explains that according to Maya, he was asking things like, where am I, and other vague inquiries. Cordelia gets it, realizing that's why his memories were so hazy for a couple of days. She pauses, then demands to know if this means he's completely fine now. Yuda, ever so calmly, asks why they're meeting secretly when they just saw each other this morning. Cordelia, with understandable frustration, points out how difficult it is for a grown lady to sneak out without her parents finding out. Yuda counters by asking how he's supposed to jump over walls with his 9 sever meridians. He then, out of nowhere, asks since when she became Cordelia. She just stares, takes a moment to process, and then asks if he means since birth. Yuda is left to ponder that rather straightforward answer. So, Yuda finally decided to get to the bottom of things, yelling at Yellow Tempest and flat out asking if she was Cordelia Chase. Cordelia, ever the direct one, immediately asked him if he was a guy. Yuda confirmed that, yes, he was indeed a guy. Cordelia then confirmed her own identity, stating she was Cordelia Chase and had never really felt the need to announce it outright. Yuda actually agreed with her on that point. He realized he genuinely had no idea who she was, despite his suspicions. He mused that he had been mistaken because she frequently said, Roger, and he wondered why she would use military radio slang in this context. Just fascinating insights, really. Yuda cleared his throat, telling her not to be upset, because he had another, more pressing reason for asking her to come to his house. Cordelia, naturally, wanted to know what that was. Yuda explained that the actual Count Bale, whose full name was Yuda Bale, had gone off on an expedition with his older brother and all their vassals. The mansion was completely empty, so they didn't have to worry about getting caught. He was certain because he vividly remembered sending them off. Then Yuda stopped himself. He paused, wondering why exactly he remembered sending them off. Cordelia then asked if he was feeling the same thing. Yuda, surprised, asked her what she meant. Cordelia laid out the big reveal. They had both become characters in the game they were so obsessed with. She explained that at first, she just felt like she had entered the game, but now she was beginning to feel like her past life was Yellow Tempest. Her current memories and Cordelia's memories were getting jumbled. She naturally referred to Count Chase as Yuda Bale, just as Yuda himself had called Count Bale by that name, as if it were second nature. Yuda agreed, acknowledging he had felt the same strange shift. Cordelia realized they hadn't just entered the game. This was their reality now. Yuda found the thought quite dangerous. If this was reality, he concluded, there was no place left for them to return to. Cordelia Chase looked up as a fire roared in the distance. She stated that this entire world was in peril. Pleiades, the world they now inhabited, was destined for destruction because of something called the Great Summoning Disaster. Yuda processed this information and suddenly thought that, looked at that way, being Yuda wasn't so bad after all, deciding he should probably forget about Leon or Maximilian. Cordelia, understandably, yelled at him, demanding to know what nonsense he was spouting and if he was seriously laughing right now. Yuda calmly explained that while he and Cordelia weren't exactly mainstream characters, their respective roles as a martial artist and a mage made them perfect for each other. Cordelia looked ahead, a smirk spreading across her face. She said she understood what he was getting at, immediately wondering if they could split items easily. Just like that, the true game freaks within them were brimming with excitement. Yuda snapped his fingers, declaring bingo. Cordelia, with a sigh, said, seriously, but you could hear the excitement behind it. Then, a system prompt appeared, asking if they would like to create a party. Yuda mused that he hadn't expected to be playing in a party here, especially after not being in one for 5 years. Yuda finds it pretty shocking that they've woken up inside the game. Cordelia remarks she never thought she'd be partying with the Forever Number 2. Yuda, naturally, gets a little defensive and demands to know what she just said. He quickly pivots, suggesting they work together now that the situation has changed. He even thinks to himself that this is his fate. Cordelia giggles, prompting another shout from Yuda about what she just said. He tells her to calm down and listen to him. Yuda thinks that if this is reality, he could cure his 9 severed meridians much faster than just clearing the game. He envisions getting an item with extreme yang energy to release his blocked yin energy in a single go. Yuda reminds her this is party play, so she won't be alone. He then asks if he wouldn't be more useful if he were well. Cordelia seems to realize his point. She asks what he wants, since there's no such item nearby. Yuda, however, says that's false. He confidently tells her there is one, located in the Balkan mountain ranges. Cordelia repeats, Balkan mountain ranges, and asks what he means. Then she practically yells, asking if he's talking about the sun's necklace. Yuda quickly shushes her, reminding her they're supposed to be meeting in secret. Cordelia gasps and covers her mouth. She then asks if he's gone crazy, pointing out that the sun's necklace is a drop from Hans Lei's gang. She questions how low-level players like them can defeat a mid-level boss. The system, for the record, confirms they are both currently level 1. Yuda insists he's thought it through and has a solution. Cordelia, surprised, asks if he really does. He confirms. Then Yuda hesitates, just for a moment, before asking, should we go on a date? Cordelia, understandably, just stares in silence. She eventually asks what he's talking about. Yuda explains, suggesting they take a horse carriage and go on a date. And just like that, the plan begins to unfold. The scene shifts to a horse carriage sitting in a field, with a foot stepping down from it. Cordelia awkwardly stammers that the weather is nice and laughs. Yuda agrees. She adds that the flowers are pretty and they made the right decision to take the carriage. Yuda then tells Cordelia that the flowers aren't as pretty as she is. Meanwhile, Maya and a soldier are seen watching them. Cordelia silently thinks she can't believe what's happening and tells Yuda not to tease her like that. Yuda asks if she'd like to take a walk since the area looks nice. They begin to walk together. Cordelia whispers that she really cannot do this. Yuda whispers back that he doesn't mind the swearing as long as others don't hear her. He then whispers for her not to walk so fast, explaining they don't want others to realize they're trying to get away. They walk across the field, putting distance between themselves and the carriage where Maya and the soldier wait. Cordelia looks back and calls him a nag. She then tells him to forget that and asks to hear his actual plan. She wants to know how they, as level ones, are going to defeat Hans Lie's gang to get the sun's necklace. Yuda just looks straight ahead. Alright, gather round, folks. We're diving into the juicy bits of a story, specifically about a rather powerful item. This little trinket drops from something called Hans Lie's Gang of the Crimson Moon, a name that practically screams boss fight. Hans, as you might expect, is not a starter monster. You'd typically tackle him in the mid to late game, and he's conveniently sealed away in the Sun God's Temple, deep within the Balkine mountain range. A nice little trip for a casual Tuesday, I suppose. So, we find our main characters, Yuda and Cordelia, taking a leisurely stroll. Yuda, ever the careful planner, makes sure to clarify that he never actually said they'd be defeating Hans Lie's gang. Cordelia, understandably, looked a bit bewildered and asked what exactly he intended to do then, telling him to cut it out with the cryptic talk. Yuda, unflustered, simply stated he had something else in mind. He then asked if she remembered to bring the item he told her about. Cordelia confirmed she had, adding with a hint of exasperation that she'd gone through quite a lot of trouble, including hiding it under her skirt, to get it here. Yuda, in response, gave her a pat and affectionately called her his dear Yellow Tempest, assuring her he trusted her word. Cordelia, however, was not amused. She quickly shot back that she was absolutely not his dear Yellow Tempest, and demanded he stop saying such disgusting things, insisting he just tell her his plans already. Yuda, with a flourish, pointed forward and declared it was all quite simple. He pointed to a cliff in the distance, and asked Cordelia if she saw it. Yuda explained that he'd checked the topography on the way, and it perfectly matched the layout from Legend of Heroes 2. His plan was for them to use magic to jump off that cliff together once they reached it. Cordelia blinked, utterly confused. She pointed out that the Sun God's Temple was just around the corner of the flower field, wondering aloud why on earth they needed to jump off a cliff. Yuda then asked if she'd ever used that particular path in the game. He then casually dropped the bomb. It was a shortcut. Cordelia, predictably, was stunned. She quickly turned away, doing her best to claim she was only joking and had known about the shortcut all along. Yuda, however, internally noted she was a terrible liar, and her face gave everything away. Clearing his throat, Yuda explained that while they could go the long way around, they couldn't bring the other two companions, Maya and Dahlia. Those two couldn't use magic and wouldn't be able to follow them easily. He then added that he felt uneasy about one particular thing and wanted to be absolutely sure. Cordelia, her initial shock fading, asked if he was certain about this whole scheme. Yuda confirmed. He then told her that before he said anything else, she absolutely had to promise not to cuss him out or hit him after hearing his next detail. Cordelia paused, clearly wary, but eventually told him to just let her hear it. Yuda pressed again, asking if she promised. Then, lowering his voice, he whispered that after they made their heroic leap down that cliff, they would make use of the fact that they were engaged. Cordelia went completely silent for a moment before letting out a yell, demanding to know exactly what he meant by that. And just like that, everything changed. "All right, let's pick up the pieces, shall we?" She screamed that his idea was crazy and that she absolutely refused to do it. Cordelia kept yelling at Yuda, but he just stood there, calm as a cucumber. He simply asked if she had any better ideas and told her to let him know if she did, pointing out that Maya and Dahlia would otherwise notice what they were doing. Cordelia trembled with frustration, clutching her hat, seething in silence for a moment before letting out a curse. Finally, she yelled that they would do it his way. Yuda, still remarkably unruffled, told her to calm down and said they would proceed then, because apparently things were not complicated enough already. Suddenly, hands clasped together, and someone yelled at them to jump. Dahlia immediately yelled for the young master, while Maya called out for the young lady. A foot kicked off the ground, someone yelled for them to fly, and a hat drifted away in the wind as Yuda held Cordelia, and they leaped through the air. Yeah, nobody saw that coming. A light step echoed a moment later, and Yuda was already yelling for young lady Cordelia, asking what they were doing and telling them to come back up because it was dangerous. Cordelia remained silent for a beat, then barely managed to speak. Yuda told her to be quick, and she stammered before yelling that she wanted some alone time. She insisted she wanted to be just with Sir Yuda, quickly adding that they wouldn't do anything weird because Sir Yuda was a gentleman. Yuda, looking a little bewildered, wondered if they shouldn't have done this. Cordelia then yelled that they would be back before nighttime and told them not to worry. It's always the gentleman part that gets them. Back on the ground, Maya asked Dahlia since when she was so close to Yuda. Dahlia stammered that it was too dangerous because they were far away, but Maya, calling her name, guaranteed that Yuda was a gentleman. Dahlia, clearly frustrated, yelled that was not the problem. Cordelia, predictably, started yelling in frustration, asking why she had to do this. She complained about being the one who had to hold him when they jumped, make all the excuses, and do all the embarrassing things. A fair point, to be honest. Yuda, however, told her not to be like that, reminding her he was a guy with the 9 severed meridians. He wondered aloud how he was supposed to hold her with such frail, wimpy arms, feeling pathetic and weak. Cordelia, ever practical, yelled at him to wait until those 9 severed meridians were recovered. Yuda countered that she wasn't doing everything, admitting he'd also done something embarrassing. He mentioned a request for a date to the flower field in a carriage, then quickly corrected himself, saying it was a letter for a quest. He explained that Maya had watched him write the entire letter and even suggested the first line be, "To my love, Lady Cordelia." Apparently, Maya's hobby is reading romance novels, which explains that particular suggestion. Yuda remained silent, perhaps still processing the "to my love" part. Cordelia conceded it was better than what he'd shouted to those two earlier. Then, with a natural shift in tone, she yelled, asking if he wanted to die. Yuda just laughed and said they should get going, offering to lead the way. It's a gift, really, that sudden shift. 10 minutes later, Yuda found the ground far more appealing, collapsing and gasping for breath. Cordelia, noticing his sudden lack of forward momentum, dryly wondered if he wasn't planning on taking the lead anymore. When she asked if he was all right, he barely managed to confirm that he was, in fact, not okay, blaming his disease. Cordelia, for her part, simply noted to herself that he was quite weak. Then came the rather unexpected request for Cordelia to carry him on her back. She asked him to repeat that, and Yuda, undeterred, insisted they needed to make good time and urged her to hurry, all while still trembling. Cordelia simply told him she understood and to stop talking, mentally adding that he was practically triggering every death flag in the book. Soon after, footsteps echoed at a cave entrance, with Cordelia now carrying Yuda on her back. She confirmed the place looked just like it did in the game and asked if they were heading the right way. Thinking Yuda was acting like a corpse because he wasn't responding, she was promptly yelled at by him to stop acting out a monologue. She seemed surprised. Cordelia then announced that the Sun God's temple was in sight. She recalled that in the game, Hans Leisgang had been sealed here after a battle with the Sun God's paladin. Yuda mumbled in agreement, saying it felt obvious now. When Cordelia asked if he had felt something, Yuda confirmed it, explaining that the game always displayed that particular comment upon entering the temple. Yuda wondered if the holy energy of the Sun God was noticeable. Cordelia confirmed it was, explaining that while it was just text in the game, being there in person made her feel like her heart was being purified. Yuda's heart began to beat a little faster, and he wondered why it was fluttering. Cordelia, ever the pragmatist, noted that it was just like in the game. She explained that the temple was always clear of monsters because of the holy energy, and she wondered to herself if that meant it was safe. Yuda stammered his agreement. Cordelia then began to sing that Hans Leisgang should be sealed in that direction. Yuda, in an effort to calm himself, thought his heart was fluttering because of Cordelia's appearance, and not because of something called Yellow Tempest. His heart continued its rapid beat. Suddenly, the door swung open, and Cordelia yelled that they had found the place where Hans Leisgang was sealed. Cordelia looked around the room, letting out a soft wow. She remarked that it was exactly like the game, perfectly designed to seal Hans Leisgang. Turning to Yuda, she pointed out that the enemy they were dealing with was a monster so powerful it required an entire massive temple for its seal. She asked if he had something in mind. Yuda smirked, confirming that he did, and asked her to hand over the items he had told her to bring. With a quick lift of her skirt, Cordelia revealed various items strapped to her leg, the fabric rustling slightly as she responded, "Roger." Cordelia then told him she had hidden the items in her skirt and instructed him to look away for a moment. She very clearly warned him she would kill him if he looked back before she said she was done. Yuda simply told her it was all right. Potions and a brush were then pulled out. Yuda, holding the items, wondered aloud how she had managed to hide them all in her skirt, affectionately calling her Cordeliaman. Cordelia, without missing a beat, told him to be grateful because she went through a lot, before calling him ungrateful, like someone named Nobita. He examines the potion, admitting he would have a hard time making it by himself. He expresses gratitude to the Chase family for their renowned magic abilities. Cordelia, ever patient, pouts and tells him to keep going. He dismissively agrees, calling her Your Highness. He then dips a brush into the potion. Yuda holds a brush up and simply says, "Now." He asks if they should get started. Yuda proceeds to draw a magic circle on the floor, while Cordelia watches him intently. She recognizes this as the magic circle of Veilstein, the greatest achievement of the trap magician, Veilstein, who became prominent during the later half of the Legend of Heroes. It has its quirks, like being unable to restrain a demon that has already been caught once, because it needs to be completed within a strict 3-minute time limit. It's also known as Kraplastin's magic circle. However, its strength is directly tied to the strength of the demon it's meant to suppress, making it a powerful demon suppression magic circle. Cordelia internally thinks Yuda is crazy and wonders if he truly memorized such a complicated design. Yuda sighs, saying he's almost done, though he notes his body feels stiff. Cordelia flinches in surprise. Yeah, nobody saw that coming. He then tells Cordelia it's her turn. She asks what he means. Yuda asks if she knows what the object is, adding he's too tired to explain it to her. She insists she knows exactly what it is. He then asks if she knows how to draw it. Cordelia, sounding offended, asks if he's forgotten who she is. He thinks to himself that she's quite obvious when she lies, trying to suppress his laughter. He explains that he has the 9 severed meridians, meaning she must activate Veilstein's magic circle. He clarifies that because she's only level 1, she lacks the mana to keep Hans Leisgang busy for 3 minutes. So, he will use mana leaking from the sun god Solari seal. He taps a finger, stating this means he will summon a small part of Hans Leisgang, while simultaneously maintaining the temple seal. He thinks he cannot do it for long. Cordelia says she understands, and asks if 1 drop of blood is enough. Yuda confirms it should be enough to activate it, and tells her not to cut too deeply. A metallic click sounds. Cordelia scoffs, noting it's unlike him to worry about her. She then draws the blade across her finger. Cordelia commands the circle to activate. A drop of blood falls. She identifies it as the magic circle of Veilstein, as the magic circle erupts with light, with Cordelia standing in the center. Yuda notes that it is shining and thinks they succeeded. Cordelia shouts in surprise as a loud rumble shakes the area. And just like that, everything changes. Cordelia asks Yuda if he's alright, considering how much it's shaking. Yuda responds that he can feel a sudden increase in mana density. A heavy thud echoes. Cordelia says Solari seal. Another heavy thud echoes, and she declares it's going to break. A loud crash resonates. Hans Leisgang found himself in a rather compromising position, specifically restrained by chains. Yuda and Cordelia observed from a distance, feeling a low rumble that confirmed the magic circle had definitely activated. A spark crackled, and Yuda mentally noted the chains were holding. Success, he thought. Then more sparks, and that classic but moment hit him. Meanwhile, seemed to be enjoying himself, letting out a chuckle. Yuda could feel an intense pressure, almost as if he was being suppressed, and quickly checked to see if Cordelia was alright. Just another Tuesday dealing with a mid-to-late game boss, he mused. Cordelia, however, was not concerned with the existential dread of a powerful foe. She cheered excitedly, which confused Yuda quite a bit. He called out to Miss Yellow Tempest, but Cordelia was already pointing, yelling about something called an outboxer on the enemy's waist. She clarified it was the sun's necklace. Yuda, predictably, thought she was being a bit of a brat. She then urged him to hurry and offered her staff to help him acquire it, making it clear her priorities lay firmly with the loot. Yuda agreed, deciding it was certainly better than having to get it with his own bare hands. A hand reached out towards what seemed to be a rose. Yuda and Cordelia moved carefully toward the statue. Cordelia, ever the enthusiast, cheered about the special item. They both looked excited, Yuda declaring they were almost there. Then the area grew dark, prompting Yuda to ask if they had finally arrived. A single red eye opened, and a heartbeat echoed through the silence. The demon then simply stood up behind them, without a word. The chains rattled, making their presence felt before this newly awakened entity. Yeah, nobody saw that coming. Yuda, now thoroughly in oh crap mode, yelled at Cordelia to run, assuring her he had the item. She shouted back that they both had it. The monster responded with a low growl, then screamed, dismissively calling them insects. Yuda yelled as he was abruptly blown back, slamming into the ground with a grunt of pain. He wondered why the creature was so strong, especially when it was supposed to be sealed. His legs gave out, and he realized he couldn't get up, which was less than ideal. Cordelia, however, was not one to be intimidated. She yelled back at the creature not to get cocky just because they were tied up. A magic circle flared at her feet, and she screamed, "Magic missile," unleashing a barrage of spells. Explosions echoed through the hall, and Yuda gasped, coughing as smoke billowed around him. He yelled at Cordelia, asking if she was crazy and why she provoked it even further. She ignored him as lights surged around her, leaving Yuda to watch in utter confusion. Clearly, this wasn't how Yuda played the game. Yuda stammered, asking if the item was some kind of level-up artifact. He quickly told himself to keep quiet, which, fair enough, because then they got a good look at what was attacking them. It was Hans Lie's gang, a demon originally slated as a mid-to-late game boss. This particular monster had previously taken down the Sun Paladin, Garius, and was sealed away in the Sun God's temple. The demon attacked. This was a boss monster they wouldn't normally dream of fighting at their current level. In a normal scenario, it would have been an instant game over. But thanks to Valestin's cheat skill, the magic circle was doing its job. They started gaining levels just by dealing a single point of damage, raking in massive experience points due to the sheer level gap. Their gamer brains were doing the math, and a satisfying chime confirmed their progress. Cordelia and Yuda both grinned. Yeah, nobody saw that coming. The monster roared in outrage as magic missiles began to strike it. Cordelia, in her usual understated style, shouted the name of her spell, Magic Missile, and fired. Then she did it again, and again. She just kept screaming the spell name, unleashing a barrage of missiles. Cordelia laughed, absolutely delighted, while Yuda just watched her in silence. She was thrilled about the level up and the unexpected jackpot from the item. Yuda, however, was quietly impressed, wondering how she managed such accuracy and how she avoided the demon's chains amidst all the chaos. The monster, thoroughly unimpressed, growled and called them insects, demanding to know if they understood who it was and how they dared to attack. Yuda had had enough. He yelled that he was going to level up too, his attitude shifting dramatically. He began to shout a prayer to the sun god, Solari, asking for blessings, chanting about the glory of morning skies and the light that banishes darkness. He even tried to summon flames from his fingers. It was then he remembered his predicament. The 9 sever meridians prevented him from using magic like Cordelia, and his energy circulation was also blocked, making martial arts impossible. So, he made a quick executive decision. He yelled that he would simply win with items. With that, he proceeded to bonk the enemy with the artifact, dealing a magnificent 1 point of damage. Yuda cheered. He got a level up. Sometimes, that's just how it works. Alright, let's pick up where we left off. Hans Lie's gang, looking a little green around the gills, trembles. He barely manages a single word before unleashing a torrent of insults, calling them trash. Cordelia, ever observant, yells in surprise, asking if he actually memorized the prayer of the sun god. Yuda confirms this, explaining that since Valentine's magic circle is a one-and-done deal, this is their only chance to hit Hans Lie's gang as much as they want. Because apparently, things were not complicated enough already. Cordelia remembers the Kraplastin part, a detail that probably seemed less urgent a few minutes ago. Yuda urgently states they don't have much time, confirming they have just 1 minute left. Both Yuda and Cordelia stand ready. And then Yuda's voice cuts through, yelling, Magic Missile. Magic Missile. Cordelia, not to be outdone, shouts a prayer for the blessings of Solari, the sun god. A loud boom shakes everything, followed by explosions rocking the entire temple. Hans Lie's gang, clearly unimpressed by their teamwork, screams at them, calling them insects as crashing and splashing sounds fill the air. Our heroes, the Ending Maker duo, are definitely making an impression. Then, a swish, and Hans is yelling that he will remember their faces. Rumbling sounds suggest he might be moving away, but his voice carries, shouting that he has engraved their souls into his mind. He then drops a casual hint about the day he is released, which, is always good news. A sharp snap echoes, followed by another explosion. He screams that he will absolutely make them experience a pain worse than death. Another snap, another explosion. Someone yells for just one more shot. The explosions continue, and he yells at these insects to listen to him, to pay attention to his words. The monster, still clinging to his insect metaphors, yells that they will definitely meet again and that he will find them. Yuda, ever the planner, suggests they meet in Act 7. Cordelia, sounding remarkably cheerful considering the recent barrage of explosions, says she had fun and will see it next time. With that, Yuda and Cordelia are left standing in the now silent hall. Cordelia laughs. She tells Yuda she always knew, but he truly is crazy. Yuda, with perfect comedic timing, says the same goes for her, reminding her that she was the one who hit him first. Cordelia exclaims, probably recalling that particular detail. She then asks if his 9 severed meridians are healed now. Yuda explains he still needs to melt all the extreme energy blocking his circulatory system, bit by bit, using the power of the sun. He admits it will probably take some time. He then suggests they head back since they leveled up and got their item. Yuda agrees, then leans heavily against Cordelia. A distinct thud is heard. Cordelia asks what he thinks he's doing, and if he wants to get beat up too. Yuda simply states he needs some support. Cordelia raises her hand, but Yuda's legs shake uncontrollably. He genuinely has no strength in his legs. Cordelia sighs and agrees to the support, mentally noting that at least he's not asking her to carry him on her back. And that night, both Yuda and Cordelia were grounded for 10 days. And just like that, everything changes. The system, ever so helpful, notifies them that they acquired the sun's necklace, a sacred weapon used by Solari's champion, Darius, which radiates extreme yang energy. The system also informs them they got the apprentice mage staff, crafted by Count Chase specifically for Cordelia. Not bad for a couple of grounded heroes. Birds were chirping outside the mansion, but inside, Yuda was having a rough morning. He flopped on his bed, finding his body unexpectedly stiff. Apparently, 10 laps around the training ground was enough to leave him in considerable pain. The maidservants, however, seemed to enjoy counting his progress and cheering him on, which, is nice. He silently cursed his 9 severed meridians for the trouble, but then acknowledged the sun's necklace was actually making him feel much better. This improvement brought his thoughts to the bigger picture. If this truly was reality, their ultimate goal was simply survival. Specifically, surviving the ending of Legend of Heroes 2, where the world of Pleiades was destined for destruction due to something called the Great Summoning Disaster. This wasn't just a minor inconvenience. It was a full-blown Armageddon, complete with a large-scale descent of angels and demons. Stopping it was the objective. He quickly realized that achieving such a feat with a weak body that struggled after 10 laps, and being a -1-star mage, was, to put it mildly, going to be impossible. He figured they wouldn't be able to do much of anything, really. So, Yuda concluded, no matter how quickly he wanted to progress, building a solid foundation for future growth was essential. And of course, he'd be doing it all with Cordelia. It had been a week since he obtained the sun's necklace, and only 3 days remained until their grounding period was over. Lying on his bed, Yuda sighed, understanding it was time to start preparing for their next move. He seemed confident that Maya would soon be smiling again. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Cordelia shivered. She couldn't quite place it, but she felt an ominous sensation, a strange premonition. This was well before the large-scale friendship event from Legend of Heroes 2 was even supposed to happen. Suddenly, Yuda's voice cut through. He was mocking her, asking if she truly couldn't memorize something as simple as Valentine's magic circle. He teased her for being number 2, claiming he could draw the circle with his toes. Cordelia thought to herself that he never actually said it quite like that. She wondered if that outboxer brat was causing trouble again. Just then, a knock sounded at her door, startling her. Cordelia simply told someone to come in. The door clicked, and Dahlia wasted no time, bursting through and calling out to Cordelia. Dahlia presented a letter, announcing that Yuda, bless his heart, had sent a love letter. Cordelia, in her innocent thoughts, considered him quite the gentleman. Though, if you ask Yuda himself, who always imagined getting the last say, he'd probably tell you he might not be a gentleman, but he is, at least, a noble. Cordelia started to speak, then hesitated, glancing to the side. She asked Dahlia why she looked so incredibly excited. Dahlia seemed surprised, asking if it wasn't good news. She went on to explain that she hadn't had much of an appetite for days. She was so worried about him. This letter, she hoped, would finally relieve her worries. There was a memory, a flash of Dahlia saying Cordelia must be so sad about not meeting with Yuda. Meanwhile, Cordelia's actual thoughts were on the expensive desserts she could finally afford to eat. She wondered how their quality and presentation were so good. It seemed she was thoroughly enjoying the food, realizing with a slight groan that she had gained a kilogram from all that delicious indulgence. After all that, Cordelia offered a belated apology for getting angry during their last picnic. Elsewhere, Maya recalled a rather dramatic scene. Cordelia hugging her fiancé, Yuda, in the Balkine mountain range, before they both just jumped down. Maya thought about how dangerous that was. Since her job was to protect Cordelia, Maya couldn't help but worry. She realized much later that Yuda, the one Cordelia was so serious about, had truly become a significant presence in her life. Maya smiled to herself at the thought. Back in the present, Maya showed a book to Dahlia, much to Cordelia's visible distress. Dahlia, however, was delighted, telling Cordelia she had learned a great deal with Maya that day. Dahlia then started thinking about a very passionate scene from the book Maya had shown her. Cordelia, for her part, could only manage a groan. She wondered exactly what the hell that maid had been teaching her. Dahlia, still buzzing with excitement, thought about how Yuda had also sent a love letter on the day of their date. She wondered how passionate this new letter would be. Holding it out, Dahlia urged Cordelia to read it quickly. Cordelia stammered her agreement. She figured she'd better just read the letter quickly and get rid of it. She opened the envelope, and the paper rustled softly. The letter simply began, "To my dearly loved Lady Cordelia." And that's when she yelled, "F-U-C-K." Cordelia crumpled the paper in her hand. Dahlia, ever the optimist, thought to herself that Cordelia must really, really like it. Cordelia, meanwhile, was startled, wondering aloud if there would be a new improv, and what exactly this latest development even was.